listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shemaiah Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shemaiah Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today. We have another show lined up for y'all. Today, we have a special guest. We're going to welcome a therapist and an author, Bryan Blakeny. He is a Houston-based mental health professional with over 26 years of experience helping individuals, professionals, and couples solve complex problems. So you have a problem? Guess what? That's why we have people on this show, I Am Refocused Radio. We have someone that will be able to not just explain what he does professionally, but to help you understand more about emotional and spiritual intelligence. So to cut right to the chase, first and foremost, Bryan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, Shemaiah. How have you been? It's great to be with you. Great to share some thoughts with your audience today.
Yes, sir. A little bit more background. You study social psychology and clinical social work. Kind of explore with us a little bit about what got you inspired to pick this career path.
Okay. I'll try to summarize best I can. But when I was growing up, I learned that my mom had a near-death experience giving birth to one of my brothers. And she experienced consciousness independent of the body. And she became aware of potentially other realms. She said it was a very distinct experience from the actual dream state. And she became aware of her dad who had passed and ancestors. To make a long story short, she had become convinced that there was more to this world than meets the eye. That this physical world is essentially a womb world, preparing ourselves for something greater. And as I was learning it, taking this in and asking questions and starting to study as I got older, I realized that I wanted my work to impact the eternal journey of the soul. That's in a nutshell.
When you think about opportunities to grow in your profession, I mean, it takes years to build something great, but it only takes seconds for it to be not so great and fall apart. How do you keep yourself poised and keep fighting through ups and downs of life, because we all have them no matter what we are doing our professional career?
That we do no matter what we're doing. My simple rules of thumb are, number one, trying my best to keep my ego in check, because we all know that our egos can often get the best of us. They can sabotage us, undermine us, and sometimes even with good intentions, even from a place of love, we can sometimes make decisions that are not the best in the long run. So even when we're thriving and we feel like we're in the zone, even coming at life from a place of love, we can still err. We can still make decisions that are not as helpful in the long term as we'd like. So one is keeping ego in check. The other is recognizing that no matter how difficult this life is, it's not in vain. In other words, everything can potentially serve a greater purpose for the strengthening, for the empowerment of our soul in terms of qualities of character. Because what are we here for? We're here to develop the qualities of character. And we generally do not create those qualities easily. It's through challenges. I believe this is why this world is often so difficult for us, no matter who we are. No matter our race, our class, ethnicity, and so on, life is challenging for all of us in various ways. And I think it was designed that way so that it's basically the Earth School, where we are forced to, I call it spiritual boot camp. We are forced essentially to dig deep, to engage one another, and to develop qualities that we wouldn't otherwise necessarily develop on our own. So that framework of keeping the ego in check and knowing that there's a greater purpose for the challenges helps keep me in check with the struggles of my work as well.
Once again, this is On Refocused Radio and talking to our guest today, Bryan Blakeny. Go to his website, bryanblakenytherapy.com. My last question for you, I kind of touched on the two things in the intro, and that is emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence. You clearly know both. For the audience, unpack the difference between the two and how you define them.
Sure. So emotional intelligence is essentially what might seem simple, and that is the process of knowing about our emotions, right? Emotions are essentially energy in motion. They're the road signs that give us feedback, essentially, as to if the approach that we are taking is most effective. Is it effective for our own health and well-being? Is it effective in building meaningful and healthy relationships? And then not only the recognizing our emotions, that they have layers, learning how to manage them, how to motivate ourselves, and how to connect meaningfully with others. That's the emotional intelligence side of it. The spiritual intelligence side is the element of the acquisition of qualities of character. We might call them divine qualities. The great philosophers of the past spoke of these core virtues that they felt were at the heart of maturity, emotional and spiritual maturity for an individual. And so these qualities are really the foundations of civilization. Imagine qualities of trust. What would happen to our economy if there was no trust? It's already challenging enough, but imagine if there was no trust. We would have no economy, and our civilization essentially would fall apart. So we need trust, we need empathy, we need selflessness, we need kindness, generosity, and so on. These are the qualities of spirit, essentially. The word spirit, like for spirituality, comes from the word respirar, essentially, which the verb to breathe, if we look back to Spanish and Latin. And spirituality is a process, it's an exchange of breathing in and breathing out. We take in knowledge and spiritual nourishment, and we exhale virtue out into the world. It's an exchange. And only the person that possesses the virtues and is living them knows how life-giving those qualities are. It's invisible, just like our breath.
When someone thinks about being present in the moment, we hear that a lot on podcasts, but to dig deeper, someone who may on the outside look like they're successful, but maybe they're disconnected emotionally. Can I explain what are some of the warning signs that people should heed to and try to catch that early?
Great question. Some of the warning signs are of course, feelings of disconnect, hopelessness, irritability, anger, loss of sense of purpose, fear. Right? Right now we live in a time with great uncertainty, variety of uncertainties. And interestingly, the more that we're kind of in internal struggle or anguish, in many cases it makes that uncertainty makes us restless in many ways. And that restlessness can make it difficult to want to be still or to recognize the need to be still. So regardless of faith backgrounds, there's this verse that I like, biblical verse, and it says, "Be still and know that I am God." And the first, right, that process of being still is the power of contemplation, because in contemplation we can reflect. It actually brings to mind one of the potentially subtle benefits of depression, oddly enough. And you'd say, well, how's there a benefit to depression? And we have to remember that if there is a creator, and we were very much designed, but also we evolve. I think we were designed to also evolve. Life was designed to evolve. That also there's a benefit for each of the emotions that we do experience. It's not like there's just positive or negative emotions, but there's a potential benefit to all emotions. As I mentioned, they're like road signs, if we're able to know what the road signs are telling us. So depression has a potential benefit, and that is that when we're depressed, we generally don't want to go anywhere or do anything. For most people, we want to just kind of shut down. Now, some people want to go out and distract themselves when they're depressed, but at the end of the day, what's really hard when we're depressed is to do the deeper thinking in terms of optimistic thinking, where we can actually reflect positively on our life. The tendency when we're depressed, of course, is to then reflect negatively, gloom and doom. But the opportunity and I underline this with all emotions, is they all give us an opportunity to reflect. And depression, because we want to shut down and oftentimes do nothing or go anywhere, we have the opportunity to be still and to contemplate our lives, not just from a negative perspective, but also one of objectivity, one of giving ourselves the space to just look without judgment, to actually respect ourselves. Respect comes from spect. The origins is to look or to see. To respect is to look again, to look back at, or to look again. And when we truly respect ourselves, we look again at our true essence. And it's only in being still that we can reflect on what our true essence is. And that is, we are pure consciousness. We are the pure silent observer who can reflect on what consciousness is, what it is to have life, even if it's not going great, but we can simply reflect. So in a nutshell, certainly more I could share on that, but I think the opportunity with our society is being still to reflect on what are we, what is our essence. These are the existential questions of life, or the questions of existence, that from that can blossom the greater questions as to how do we put this life and its difficulties into perspective. What is this journey that we're on? It's not just to keep up with the Joneses. It's not just to acquire material things and to die as rich as we can be. There's more to it. And so to your question, in terms of being still, enables us to choose a different path, the road less traveled, as to what our true purpose in this life might actually be.
And speaking of reflection, there's professionals who know how to solve problems while they're at work, when they're in the office. But at the same time, they could be struggling addressing problems in their personal lives. Explain to the audience why that could be happening. We of course, we spend so much time at work that it's easy to, we're conditioned to solve those problems, and especially when our livelihood depends on it. But the problems at home and the personal ones, they follow us. And it can almost be like decision fatigue. We can be overwhelmed by the fact that they're constantly following us. And we may or may not have experience resolving certain internal conflicts. We may not have the know-how or the confidence, the belief in ourselves to dig deeper. So I think it's a universal challenge for all of us is what we do at home. It reminds me of charity begins at home. We think about being of service and who can we help, but the challenge is that sometimes we get so focused on helping others we forget to help ourselves. And like on an airplane, is like put the oxygen on ourselves first, then we can better help others. But it's not an absolute. It's a process. Just going back to that exchange of breath. It doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. No one will ever be perfectly analyzed. So, but it's this give and take, this exchange of taking in and giving back on the day-to-day, but trying to make time each day for some degree of self-care. And certainly those of us in the helping professions, we know that we are required, part of our professional ethics and oath is that we will make time for self-care so that we can better serve the people that come to us that are in crisis. Once again, listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online. Talking to our guest today, Bryan Blakeny. Go to his website. It's bryanblakenytherapy.com. We talked about earlier in the intro about you also working with couples. When you think about how couples repeatedly can argue about the same issue, that's normal. But what is something that you kind of notice, maybe a pattern of what could be happening beneath the surface of these disagreements?
Yeah, great question. Going back to that word respect is not just, hey, respect me, or hey, I deserve to be respected, but going back to the actual meaning to say, hey, honey, are we remembering to look again? Are we remembering to look beyond the issues, beyond what we think are the patterns? Because sometimes the patterns aren't our partner. Sometimes the patterns are more in our own thinking and our expectations. It's like we expect certain things to happen. It's like, oh, they did that again. Even though it may no longer be a pattern for your partner, it may be that, hey, you did this 10 years ago. Look, you did it again. And in our mind, oops, see, there's the pattern. It's like a confirmation bias, almost like we're looking for the self-fulfilling prophecy. And even though for our partner, they may have changed, and yet somehow we've put our partner in a box. See, I knew you were going to do that. Oh, there you go again. You always do that, or you never do what I asked you to do. And so we get into our own patterns of unrealistic expectations. So sometimes we've got to be able to look again. And when we truly look again, not just once again, but as many times as it takes to honor the dignity and the worth of our partner, to actually listen and to be present with how things occur to them. Because we can get so attached to our viewpoint and thinking that our viewpoint, we know what we saw, we know what is happening, we know the pattern, we know your intentions. No, we don't. We don't know our partner's intentions. And in the work that I do with couples, I let them know that they have no right to judge their partner's motives. We want to give them the opportunity to explain and to help us understand over time. It might take a while to really understand what the motives. A lot of times our behavior is not happening on an isolated bubble. A lot of times our partner's response or reaction might be in reaction to how we're handling things. It may be just them, but maybe be in response to how we're handling it. Maybe we're not showing up in the way that we could, and here we are pointing the finger at our partner. So one of the challenges I found with couples is it's very common, very rarely are partners equal with everything in every area of their life, with communication and connection and patience, with all of these qualities. They're not going to be equal. So there's times where there's gaps in understanding or resonance with virtue. So as an example, one couple may have this pattern of judging each other's motives, and you say, hey, look, I feel like my motives are being judged all the time, as though you somehow know me, like you know what I'm trying to do or not do. But I feel like I can't get a chance. I'm put in a box and you won't let me out of the box. But could you give me a chance to actually explain why I think things unfolded the way that they did? That I'm not just reacting on my own. Is it okay to share what happened, or how your reaction affected me, or how the circumstances? So in other words, we're trying to look again objectively, rather than getting caught up in our feelings, our opinions, or our need for control. Because struggles in relationship can create uncertainty, vulnerability, and sometimes questioning of adequacy. And when we get into those negative feeling states of uncertainty and lack of confidence, our need for control increases. And now, what's it like when we're in a partner who feels so controlling, or they're trying to control the narrative of the dialogue or the meaning of a situation? So now we got to break free of all that. And of course, that takes time. But it's wonderful when couples can get to a new space where they're willing to let go of their old attachments, and they're actually willing to be present with how things occur, and to let free of the need to judge their motives, or allow, this is the big one, to allow their own hearts, to stop allowing their own hearts to be so easily offended. Because when we are offended, it's very easy for the one offended to become the perpetrator. They now become the one offending. You hurt me, you SOB, and therefore you deserve to burn in hell, whatever, right? If we're not careful, the victim can flip, and now they become the one with the vengeance in their heart. And we say two wrongs don't make a right. It's just one came before the other. So we want to be careful that when we've been hurt, that we're not taking it personally, that we don't inadvertently become the perpetrator and become the very thing that we despised in the other.
it's like having a contest who's going to reach the end of the rope, and that's not healthy for anybody. So my next question for you is, when you think about in the work that we all have to do as individuals, whether it's personally, professionally, how we show up in our community, how we show up in life, when you think about purpose yourself, is that something that you believe we create, or is it something that we discover, or is it a combination of both?
Ooh, beautiful. To your point, I think deep down, I think it's both. I think it's something we create and discover. We get to create our personal purpose as far as, what do I want my personal mission? What do I want my impact in the world? Am I here in this world just to live for myself and my own, trying to fill my life with as many things or pleasant moments as possible and my own happiness? Or I'm actually here to also make a contribution, to maybe have the chance to leave a legacy for the world. So I get to create that. And that comes from my own personal interests. What is my curiosity? What are my curiosities and my passion for life? Is there a population or particular problems that I enjoy solving, or that I think I'd be great at solving? I get to create it. But also there's the elements of the discovering, and that is the twofold. It's like the lesser purpose and the greater purpose. The lesser purpose we create. The greater purpose we discover over the course of a lifetime, and that I consider the objective purpose. And that is, what were we created for? Were we created? Is there a higher power? Did the universe and the world have a designer? And if so, is that designer or creator trying to guide or educate us in a particular way? Is it possible that they've sent messengers or manifestations to guide us over time? And is there a rule book? Are there guidelines that shape us as human beings that actually enable us to thrive, instead, that bring out our higher spiritual nature instead of our lower nature? Because anyone that's trying to live in this civilized world and to have somewhat of a stable life, well, there's certain ground rule, there's certain boundaries and rules that we live by to be a part of civilization. It's not like anything goes. I would imagine that if there's a red light, hopefully everyone is trying to stop at red lights. But imagine there's someone who's like, that's so, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically rogue. That's like, I don't need to stop at red lights. If I want to drive, no one's going to tell me how to drive, and therefore. But thankfully, by stopping at red civilization, the traffic can function because people abide by certain rules. We agree we're going to stop at red lights for safety and for organization. And so traffic runs smoother when we follow the traffic rules. And same thing spiritually and emotionally. When we find out, is there a greater purpose, and is there guidance as to what helps us as human beings and what doesn't, what brings out the truly the best. And that helps us connect into a more objective purpose, to consider that this physical world, is it possible that it is a spiritual boot camp, and that it's rigid, it's rigorous, it's very difficult at times, and we get little bits of relief, but it's challenging. But is it possible that it's preparing us for so much greater? And coming full circle to one of your initial questions, when I shared about my mom's near-death experience, there is no doubt that my mom had a profound experience, because she observed when they were reviving her, she was giving birth, they were doing an emergency C-section, and her consciousness lifted up above the ceiling, and she was able to see her body being operated on in terms of the C-section and then reviving her. She observed it all from above the ceiling as if the ceiling did not exist. And later in the recovery, she was able to tell the doctors and the nurses everything that she saw, and they were dumbfounded that there was more than meets the eye, because she was able to tell them what they were saying, what they were doing, the things that, in being physically dead, should have been impossible for her to know about. But she physically saw it, what we would call physically saw. She was able to describe what she saw, even though her body on the operating table was dead with her eyes closed. And yet she still saw. So consciousness, this taps back into, is there a greater purpose? And I think one thing that breaks my heart for our world is that we're so caught up in survival that much of society has lost curiosity for exploring the greater purpose. In the same way that at night in our cities, there's so much light pollution that we've lost sight of the stars, and we've lost sight of the awe and wonder of getting a glimpse of the Milky Way at night, and to think, wow, is it possible we're a part of something greater?
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Bryan Blakeny. Go his website, bryanblakenytherapy.com. Before we wrap up, you also, like I said in the intro, you're an author. You have a book that people can go find, and that is entitled Top Secret, Declassifying the Meaning of Life. If you have one last thought you want to share with our viewers and listeners, what do we want to share with them?
Yeah, one last thought. Continue to stay curious. I think human beings are limited by many things, but primarily our curiosity and our confidence and belief to create. I'd imagine some of us may have gone into certain career paths, and years later, you discover another career. We interact with other people like, so what do you do for a living? You do what? Wow, I didn't even know that was a possibility. And we hear about new opportunities in this world, and you go, man, if I had known about that when I was younger, I'd be all over that. And so our curiosity is fuel for growth. It's fuel for expansion and unlocking infinite potential and possibilities for us as human beings. And then by connecting with creating our personal purpose and discovering the ultimate. See, I'm one of the few human beings, there's a handful of us in the world, a few million of us that I would estimate, that have discovered the greater, and I mean great, incredibly unique, greater purpose of why we exist on this planet, why we were created in the first place, with intention. And when we plug in to that personal purpose that we've created and discover the greater one, now we unlock incredible potential and capacity to see what we as human beings are not only individually capable of, but collectively what civilization and the entire planet, we as a species, are able to create. And in that, and with that comes a unity that most of the world would say is impossible.
With that said, you listen on Refocused Radio, watch us online, talk to our guest, Bryan Blakeny. Like always, to you, I want to say thank you for your time.
The honor's been mine. Shemaiah, thank you so much for having me.